Hey there, fellow wanderers of history. If you're enjoying this journey into the past, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below your thoughts. Help us sail these stories further. Let's ease into the world of Viking shipwrights, where the gentle rhythm of waves and wood meets the quiet fjords of 9th and 10th century Scandinavia. Imagine standing on the shores of Roskilde, a serene harbor nestled along Denmark's winding coastlines. The air is crisp, carrying the faint salt of sea spray that lingers on your skin like a soft whisper. Here under the vast, pale sky, men and women in simple wool tunics move with purposeful grace, their hands roughened by years of shaping oak and pine. These artisans, the unsung architects of the Viking Age, work not in the shadow of grand halls or warriors' tales, but in the humble light of daybreak, where the fjord's glassy waters reflect the slow dance of clouds above. Their craft is one of quiet creation, a lullaby of hammer and adze that echoes across the water, inviting the mind to drift into peaceful contemplation. In this era, the shipwright's life unfolds like a steady tide, predictable yet profound. Picture them rising with the first hints of dawn, when the world is still wrapped in a cool, dew-kissed hush. Their tunics, woven from coarse wool dyed in earthy tones, hang loosely over sturdy frames, offering warmth against the morning chill, while allowing freedom for the intricate work ahead. They gather by the water's edge, where the land meets the sea in a gentle embrace, and begin their day with the scent of fresh cut wood filling the air. Sawdust drifts like fine snow, settling on their boots and the ground beneath, a soft carpet that crunches faintly underfoot with each step. The wood itself speaks in its own way. Oak beams, hauled from nearby forests, carry the earthy aroma of ancient trees, mingled with the salty tang of the fjord. These craftsmen wield tools passed down through generations, each one a testament to their skill and ingenuity. An adze, its curved blade honed to perfection, slices through timber with a rhythmic swish, while axes bite into logs with deliberate precision. Drawing from the Oseberg ship finds, those remarkable burials unearthed in Norway that reveal the mastery of early shipbuilding. We see how these tools shaped vessels capable of braving the open seas. The Oseberg ship, an elegant longship from the early 9th century, showcases the shipwright's art. Clinker-built hulls, where overlapping planks are fastened with iron rivets, creating a flexible strength that flexes with the waves like a living thing. As they carve and fit each piece, the shipwrights hum low tunes, perhaps fragments of sagas heard around evening fires, their voices blending with the lapping of water against the shore. Life for these artisans is a blend of solitude and community, a daily ritual that unfolds in the soft glow of the sun. By the fjords, they work in small groups, their conversations sparse and meaningful, like the careful placement of a single rivet. One might lean over a half-formed hull, tracing the grain of the wood with calloused fingers, feeling the warmth of the sun-baked timber against their skin. The sea breeze carries the distant cry of gulls, a soothing backdrop to the steady tap-tap of mallets. In these moments, the shipwrights embody a subtle wit, perhaps chuckling inwardly at how their creations outlast the fleeting fame of explorers, their ships becoming legends, while their own names fade into the mist. Their work is deeply tied to the rhythms of nature, a harmonious dance with the elements. The fjord provides not just a workspace, but a muse, its waters ebbing and flowing as a reminder of the ship's ultimate purpose: exploration. These vessels, born from the shipwright's hands, carried dreamers across uncharted waters, seeking new lands under the vast northern skies. The saga accounts, like those in the Icelandic tales, hint at this without fanfare: stories of ships slicing through fog-shrouded seas, their sails billowing like whispers of adventure. Yet it's the craft itself that captivates. The way a single plank, smoothed by sand and oil, gleams in the afternoon light, promising journeys beyond the horizon. Sensory details abound in this world, drawing one into a tranquil reverie. The smell of pitch, heated to seal the seams, mingles with the fresh, resinous scent of newly hewn pine, creating an aroma that soothes the senses like a warm blanket. As the day progresses, the sun climbs higher, casting a golden hue over the workspace, and the shipwrights pause to wipe sweat from their brows, tasting the faint salt on their lips from the sea air. The soundscape is equally calming. The gentle scrape of tools against wood, the occasional splash of water as they test a beam's buoyancy, and the soft rustle of wind through nearby reeds. It's a life of patient creation, where each stroke of the adze is a meditation, building not just ships, but stories etched into the very fibers of the wood. In Roskilde, this craft reaches its zenith, a hub of innovation drawn from the surrounding landscapes. The fjords, with their protective inlets, offer a natural haven for building and launching these marvels. Shipwrights draw inspiration from the local environment, using timber from the dense forests that cloak the hills, each tree selected for its strength and flexibility. The Oseberg finds illustrate this expertise, revealing ships adorned with intricate carvings, subtle motifs of waves and serpents that speak of a deeper connection to the sea. These details, preserved in the earth for centuries, remind us of the shipwright's unspoken artistry, a blend of practicality and beauty that ensured their creations could weather storms and carry souls to distant shores. Yet, amid this serene dedication, there lies a gentle mystery that adds a layer of intrigue to their story. Unlike the chieftains and explorers whose names echo through the sagas, the shipwrights remain faceless, their identities lost to time. No records from the 9th or 10th century preserve their names. No stones mark their passing. It's as if they chose to vanish into the fog, content in the knowledge that their hands shaped the very vessels that defined an era. This enigma, unique to their craft, invites a quiet reflection. Perhaps they found immortality not in words, but in the enduring lines of the ships they built, which still whisper secrets to modern eyes, drawing from saga accounts like those in the Heimskringla. We glimpse indirect references to these artisans, not as individuals, but as essential threads in the tapestry of Viking society. Their contributions felt rather than named. As evening descends, the shipwrights lay down their tools. The day's work complete, the fjord grows still, its surface mirroring the fading light, and the air cools with a refreshing breeze that carries the day's last sense of wood and sea. They gather perhaps for a simple meal, sharing tales of the ships they've known, their voices low and rhythmic, like the waves themselves. In this moment, the craft of exploration takes root, not in conquest, but in the promise of discovery, of horizons waiting to be crossed. And as we linger here, by the tranquil waters of Roskilde, let this introduction fade like a gentle tide, leading us toward the next chapter of Viking life. What other secrets lie hidden in the folds of history? We'll uncover more soon in the stories yet to unfold, in the dim glow of a vast wooden hall, where beams of aged oak whispered secrets of ancient forests. Harold Fairhair sat upon his high seat, cloaked in the soft warmth of fur, its edges trimmed with the silvered pelts of northern wolves. He gazed into the crackling hearth. The fire danced lazily, its flames licking at logs that popped and sighed, releasing the resinous scent of pine that lingered like a gentle embrace. Outside, the wind murmured through the fjords, carrying the faint salt of the sea, as if the world itself paused to listen to the tales of a king who shaped a nation from whispers and shadows. Harold, born in the year 850 under the vast skies of Vestfold, had risen not through the clamor of swords, but through the quiet weave of alliances and oaths. The sagas of Snorri Sturluson paint him as a figure of unyielding vision, a man whose eyes, sharp as the stars above the midnight waters, saw beyond the scattered kingdoms of Norway. In those early days, as the snow-draped hills cradled the land, Harold envisioned a unified realm where the petty kings of old would bow to a single crown. It was a dream born not in the heat of conflict, but in the cool deliberation of long evenings by the fire, where the air grew thick with the earthy aroma of smoked meats and the subtle tang of fermented honey mead. Draped in his fur cloak, its fibers soft against his skin like the touch of a winter's first frost, Harold often summoned his advisors to these halls. The room echoed with the low hum of voices, a soothing rhythm like the distant waves lapping against the shore. He would speak of ships, not as instruments of war, but as bridges to bind the land. Let us build vessels that carry our people, not divide them, he might have said, his words flowing like the gentle current of a stream. From Snorri's accounts, we know Harold commissioned great longships, their hulls crafted from the stout hearts of pine trees felled in the misty valleys. These ships, with their curved prows rising like the backs of sleeping dragons, were meant to traverse the fjords and open seas, fostering trade and kinship among the far-flung clans. As the flames flickered, casting a golden haze over the hall's tapestries, woven with threads of wool and legend. Harold's unification efforts unfolded like a slow dawn. He married wisely, forging bonds that linked the bloodlines of rival chieftains. One such union, as chronicled in the sagas, tied him to the daughter of a Western lord. Her dowry, a promise of loyalty from her father's lands. In the quiet hours, amidst the soft rustle of furs and the warm glow that painted the walls in hues of amber, Harold would ponder these alliances. The air carried the faint, comforting scent of drying herbs, hung from the rafters lavender and thyme, their essences mingling to ease the mind after days of counsel. Yet amid these endeavors, there lingered the mystery of unwritten decrees, a shadow that danced just beyond the fire's light. Snorri Sturluson hints at edicts spoken in hushed tones, agreements sealed not with ink, but with the weight of a king's word. These were the laws that bound the land without parchment, decrees whispered in the sanctity of the hall, or carved into the memories of trusted scalds. What secrets did they hold? Perhaps promises to protect sacred groves where the wind sighed through ancient pines, or vows to honor the spirits of the waters that fed the fjords. This enigma, untouched by the quill, added a layer of intrigue to Harold's reign, a subtle puzzle that invited contemplation rather than fear. In the sagas, such unwritten words were said to carry the power of fate, their essence preserved in the oral traditions that echoed through generations. Much like the persistent whisper of rain on a thatched roof, the halls themselves became symbols of his vision, structures of sturdy timber that creaked gently under the weight of history. Harold, in his fur-lined throne, would watch as emissaries arrived, their footsteps muffled by rushes strewn across the floor, releasing a fresh, green scent with each step. He spoke of fair laws, drawing from the customs of his forebears, ensuring that justice flowed as steadily as the rivers carving through the valleys. One historical example, as Snorri recounts, involved the establishment of thing assemblies, gatherings where free men could voice their concerns under the open sky. In these assemblies, Harold's influence was felt not through force, but through the calm authority of his presence, his voice a soothing cadence that cut through the breeze like a lullaby. As the seasons turned, the pine-scented air of summer gave way to the crisp chill of autumn, and Harold's efforts deepened. He encouraged the flow of goods along the coasts, envisioning a Norway where the bounty of the north barrels of fish preserved in salt, fleeces soft as cloud drifts reached every corner. In the halls, the hearths burned brighter, their crackles a comforting backdrop to discussions of prosperity. Harold, ever the strategist, commissioned more ships, each one a testament to unity. The workers, though not the focus here, were guided by his directives, their hammers ringing like distant chimes in the twilight, a sound that blended with the calls of nocturnal birds to create a symphony of peace. Through it all, the mystery of those unwritten decrees persisted, a gentle enigma that wove through the fabric of his rule. Snorri suggests they might have included ancient pacts with the land itself, promises to maintain the balance of nature in exchange for bountiful harvests. In the quiet nights, as the fire dimmed and the hall filled with the soft hush of sleeping breaths, one could almost hear the echo of these lost words, carried on the wind like a forgotten melody. This uncertainty lent a poetic grace to Harold's legacy, a reminder that some truths reside not in stone inscriptions, but in the heart's quiet chambers. Harold's reign, spanning over 8 decades, until his passing in 932, was marked by such thoughtful pursuits. He navigated the complexities of leadership with a wit as subtle as the smile of the moon on a clear night, turning potential discord into harmony. The sagas speak of his ability to foresee the needs of his people, much like anticipating the first snow's arrival by the scent in the air. In one instance, he decreed the protection of fishing grounds, ensuring that the silver flash of salmon in the streams would sustain generations, a decision that echoed through unwritten lore. As the years wove on, the wooden halls grew familiar, their walls absorbing the stories of a king who unified a fractured land. The fur cloak, worn smooth by time, symbolized his enduring presence, a comforting weight against the uncertainties of rule. Yet, even in moments of reflection, Harold remained detached, his actions a testament to consequence rather than conquest. The mystery of his unwritten decrees, perhaps the most enduring aspect of his rule, invited endless speculation, a riddle wrapped in the smoke of hearth fires and the whisper of pine needles. And so, as the flames settled into embers, casting a final, soothing glow, the tale of Harold Fairhair faded into the night, leaving behind a legacy that whispered of unity and wonder. Beyond this hall, other stories awaited, drawing one ever onward into the tapestry of history. In the hushed embrace of a 10th century Scandinavian fjord, where mist clung to the water like a whispered secret, the world slowed to the rhythm of ancient waves. The air carried the faint salt tang of the sea, mingled with the earthy scent of damp timber and wild heather blooming along the rocky shores. Shipwrights, clad in simple tunics of coarse wool, moved with deliberate grace among the vessels moored by the water's edge. Their hands, calloused from years of shaping oak and pine, worked patiently on hulls scarred by unseen journeys, the wood creaking softly under their touch like a sigh from the depths. It was a scene of quiet industry, far from the clamor of raids or conquests, where the mysteries of the sea began to unfold in the fading light of dusk. These fjords, cradled by towering cliffs that echoed with the distant cry of gulls, held stories of ships that had vanished into the vast, unforgiving North Atlantic. The Viking longships, crafted with the precision of masters like those who built the famed Gokstad vessel, were marvels of their time, sleek and sturdy, with overlapping planks clinker built to withstand the ocean's fury. Discovered centuries later in a burial mound near Sandefjord, the Gokstad ship revealed the ingenuity of its creators. A hull of oak, reinforced with iron rivets and tarred ropes, designed to glide through stormy waters with the elegance of a bird in flight. Yet, for all their craftsmanship, not every ship returned from the perilous voyages that defined the era. The mystery lay not in the ships themselves, but in the shadows of what befell them, lost to tempests, or the silent embrace of the deep. As the shipwrights paused in their work, wiping sweat from their brows, with sleeves damp from the misty air, they might have pondered the fates of those absent vessels. The fjord's surface rippled gently, reflecting the pale sky, while the soft lapping of waves against the hulls created a lullaby that soothed the soul. It was easy, in such moments, to imagine the lost ships adrift in the fog-shrouded seas, their sails billowing like ghosts in the wind. Historical fragments, pieced together from sagas, and the rare artifacts pulled from muddy graves, suggested that many a longship met its end not through battle, but through the capricious whims of nature. Storms, those sudden tempests that brood over the North Sea, could swallow a fleet whole, leaving no trace, but perhaps a fragment of carved prow washed ashore. One such enigma lingered in the collective memory of the fjord's inhabitants. The disappearance of a trading convoy in the year 950, a flotilla that set sail from the coasts of Norway, bound for the distant isles of the Hebrides. These ships, built in the style of the Gokstad, long and narrow, with a shallow draft for navigating shallow waters, carried goods of amber and fur. Their crews, seasoned men who knew the stars and currents as intimately as their own hearths. Yet, as the autumn gales swept in, bringing with them the chill of impending winter and the scent of rain soaked pine forests, the convoy vanished. No wreckage was ever found. No tales of survivors reached the shores, leaving behind only the quiet puzzle of what might have transpired had the ships been claimed by massive waves, those towering walls of water that could splinter even the stoutest oak. Or had they been led astray by treacherous fogs, dense as a woolen blanket, that obscured landmarks and turned familiar seas into labyrinths? The air grew cooler as evening deepened, carrying the faint, woody aroma of the shipwright's tools, axes, and adzes honed to a keen edge, their handles worn smooth by generations of hands. In the soft glow of a setting sun, filtered through the mist like a dream half forgotten, the workers continued their repairs, each stroke of hammer on wood a gentle counterpoint to the fjord's whispers. They spoke little, their words sparse and laced with a subtle humor, as if to lighten the weight of the unknown. The sea gives and takes as it pleases. One might murmur with a wry smile, acknowledging the ocean's dual nature without bitterness. For in those times, the loss of ships was not merely a tragedy, but a reminder of the world's vast indifference, a detached consequence woven into the fabric of life. Further afield, beyond the sheltered inlets, lay the shipwrecks that time had partially revealed. Explorations in later centuries, drawing from the Gokstad's legacy, uncovered remnants in the cold sands of Danish coasts or the murky depths of Swedish lakes. These finds spoke of vessels that had succumbed to hidden reefs, their hulls torn by jagged rocks that lay in wait beneath the waves' deceptive calm, the creak of timber straining against the sea's pull, the sudden rush of water flooding decks. These were the unseen perils that claimed many a ship, yet the true mystery often dwelled in the unknowns, the reasons why some crews pressed on into danger, perhaps driven by whispers of uncharted lands, or the promise of riches in far-off markets. The Gokstad ship, with its elegant design and capacity for both war and trade, exemplified the Vikings' boldness, but it also hinted at the risks inherent in such ventures. Historians now speculate that navigational errors, compounded by the rudimentary tools of the age, perhaps a simple sun compass or the stars' alignment, could lead entire fleets astray into fog-bound straits where no return was possible. As the night drew nearer, the fjord's atmosphere grew serene, the mist thickening to veil the stars in a soft, ethereal veil. The shipwrights lit small fires along the shore, their flames flickering like distant memories, casting warm light on the repaired hulls. The scent of burning driftwood mingled with the salty breeze, evoking a sense of timeless continuity. In this calm, one could almost hear the echoes of lost ships, their masts creaking in the wind as if calling from the abyss. Another layer to the mystery emerged from tales of ships that simply dissolved into legend. Vessels that might have foundered in the icy grip of the Greenland currents, where pack ice could crush a hull as effortlessly as a hand might crush a leaf. The Gokstad's preservation in its burial site offered a contrast, a glimpse of how ships were meant to endure. Yet the sea's own archives remained incomplete, scattered across the ocean floor. Through the lens of history, the unknowns multiplied. Were there patterns in these losses, subtle threads connecting storms and ship designs? The Gokstad's robust frame, with its high sides and flexible planks, was built to flex with the waves. But not all ships shared such fortune. Perhaps flaws in construction, undetected until the moment of crisis, played a role. A weakened joint, or an overlooked seam that gave way under pressure. The shipwrights, in their tunics stained with pitch and sweat, might have shared quiet jests about such possibilities, their wit a gentle shield against the fjord's brooding mysteries. Even the finest oak bows to the sea's will, one would say, his voice carrying a lullaby's cadence as the waves whispered in agreement. Yet amid the sensory tapestry, the cool touch of mist on skin, the rhythmic splash of oars in the distance, the earthy taste of smoked fish shared around the fires, the greatest enigma persisted: the human element. Why did Vikings venture forth, knowing the risks? The answer lay in the allure of the unknown, a pull as inexorable as the tides. As the night deepened, with the air growing crisp and the stars emerging like pinpricks of ancient light, the mysteries of the lost ships wove into the fabric of the fjord's nights, a calming reminder of life's fleeting voyages. In closing, as the shipwrights laid down their tools and the fjord settled into silence, one could feel the pull toward further tales, where other secrets of the Viking world awaited discovery. Perhaps in the next whisper of the waves, new stories would rise from the depths, inviting reflection on the enduring dance between humanity and the sea. In the dimming light of a Norwegian autumn evening, the great hall of a Viking chieftain stood as a warm beacon amid the whispering fjords. Its timber walls, hewn from ancient oaks and pines, rose sturdy and inviting, their surfaces etched with faint carvings of serpents and waves. Inside, the air was thick with the gentle haze of a central fire pit, where flames danced lazily, casting a golden glow over all who gathered. This was a place of refuge and revelry, far from the cold winds that howled outside, where the chieftain and his kin feasted in quiet splendor, their fur-lined cloaks draped like soft shadows over broad shoulders. The chieftain himself sat at the head of the long table, a figure of unassuming might, his cloak of wolf pelts brushing against the carved bench. He was not a man of bluster, but one who commanded through the subtle weight of his presence, his eyes glinting with a wry amusement as he raised a horn of mead. The drink, sweet and fermented from honey gathered in summer meadows, filled the hall with an aroma that mingled with the earthy scent of roasted meats turning on spits. Lamb and boar sizzled gently over the flames, their fats dripping into the fire with soft hisses, releasing wisps of savory smoke that curled upward like forgotten dreams. Around him, his household warriors, kin and scalds leaned in, their voices a low murmur, sharing tales in the flickering light. Life in this hall unfolded with a rhythm as steady as the tides, a tapestry woven from the threads of daily toil and evening opulence. By day, the chieftain oversaw the affairs of his domain from a high seat carved from a single log, its armrests smoothed by years of use. Messengers arrived with news of distant trade routes, their footsteps muffled by rushes strewn across the earthen floor, fragrant with the scent of wild herbs crushed underfoot. Women of the household moved with graceful purpose, their tunics adorned with silver brooches that caught the light, tending to the looms where wool was spun into fine cloths. The air carried the faint, comforting tang of wool oil and dye, a reminder of the hall's self-sustaining world, where every item spoke of careful craftsmanship. Evenings brought the true essence of opulence, a gentle unfolding of treasures amassed through raids and trade. The chieftain's table groaned under the weight of platters, loaves of dark bread, still warm from the oven, their crusts crackling softly as they were broken. Cheeses aged in cool cellars, their creamy richness balanced by the sharpness of wild berries, and mead that flowed like liquid gold, its bubbles tickling the palate with a subtle sweetness. Silver goblets, etched with intricate knotwork, reflected the fire's glow, while amber beads and ivory combs lay scattered like stars fallen to earth. The chieftain in his fur cloak would nod approvingly as a skald strummed a lute, its strings humming a melody that wove through the hall like a summer breeze, evoking tales of ancestral feats without the edge of violence. Yet, amid this serene abundance, there lingered a quiet mystery, one that whispered through the shadows of the hall like an unsolved riddle. In the corners, where the firelight barely reached, chests of carved wood held the chieftain's most prized possessions: gold rings and armbands, beads of glass from distant lands, and artifacts whose origins were as elusive as the northern lights. Archaeological whispers from later centuries suggested that such halls often guarded secrets, treasures buried or lost in the earth, perhaps hidden during times of unrest, only to vanish from history. One such enigma, drawn from the reports of sites like Borg in the Lofoten Islands, spoke of a chieftain's hoard that archaeologists uncovered in fragments, twisted metal, and shattered jewels, as if the earth had swallowed them whole. No one knew if these were offerings to the gods or safeguards against invaders. But in the hall, the chieftain might glance at a particular locked chest, his expression touched by a subtle wit, as if to say, some stories are best left in the smoke. The hall's warmth extended beyond the feasting, enveloping the senses in a cocoon of comfort. The fire's embers crackled with a soothing rhythm, their heat radiating like a gentle embrace, while the scent of pine, resin from the roof beams mingled with the mead's floral notes, creating an atmosphere that lulled the mind into peaceful reflection. Pillows stuffed with down feathers offered soft respite on the benches, their fabric woven from the wool of local sheep, dyed in hues of muted earth and sky. Even the sounds were a balm. The low hum of conversation, punctuated by the occasional clink of a goblet, and the distant call of owls outside, blending into a symphony that eased the soul. In this 10th century world, the chieftain's role was one of benevolent oversight. His authority felt not through force, but through the shared prosperity he fostered. Historical accounts from excavations at places like Leif's farmstead in Iceland, though not in Norway proper, echo the patterns found here. Halls as centers of community, where feasting reinforced bonds. The chieftain would rise at dawn, his movements deliberate, to consult with advisors over a simple breakfast of porridge and dried fish. The flavors simple yet satisfying, carrying the salt of the sea and the earthiness of grains. By midday, the hall buzzed with activity, children playing in the corners, their laughter light as feathers, while elders mended nets or carved bone combs, their tools whispering against the wood. As twilight deepened, the opulence returned, more pronounced in its subtlety. The chieftain's fur cloak, perhaps lined with the softest mink, was not merely a garment, but a symbol, its warmth a testament to the hunts that sustained the hall. Feasts were modest by modern standards, but lavish in their context. With meats seasoned with herbs from the surrounding forests, their aromas sage, and thyme drifting like old friends, a skald might recount a verse, his words flowing with a wry twist. In this hall, even the shadows feast, for what is hidden often shines brightest in the dark. Such wit, understated and clever, kept the gatherings lively without discord, yet the mystery of the lost treasures added a layer of intrigue, a thread of uncertainty that archaeological digs have only partially unraveled. Reports from the Gokstad ship burial, though not a hall, hint at similar hoards items interred with the dead, perhaps mirroring those in the chieftain's possession. In this hall, one might imagine a hidden compartment beneath the floor, where glinting metals lay forgotten, waiting for discovery. The chieftain, with a detached air, might ponder this as he sipped his mead, his thoughts drifting to tales of ancestors who concealed their wealth from prying eyes, ensuring that some legacies remained eternal puzzles. Through the seasons, the hall adapted, its routines a dance with nature. In winter, the fire burned brighter, its smoky tendrils carrying the scent of burning peat, while in summer, doors opened to let in the fresh breeze off the fjords. Infused with the salty kiss of the sea, the chieftain's household thrived on this cycle, their lives intertwined with the land's rhythms, finding joy in the simple luxuries that surrounded them. As the night wore on, the hall grew quieter, the fire dimming to embers that glowed like distant stars. The chieftain would retire to his chamber, his fur cloak folded neatly, leaving the mysteries of the hall to settle into the shadows. And as sleep claimed the weary, one might wonder what tales the next dawn would bring, perhaps turning toward realms beyond these timber walls, where other stories awaited their turn in the weave of history. In the soft light of a 10th century Scandinavian dawn, where fjords stretched like silver threads between ancient hills, the Viking shipwrights began their quiet work along the water's edge. Men in simple woolen tunics moved with the rhythm of the sea, their hands already calloused from years of shaping oak. The air carried a gentle salt-tinged breeze, whispering through the pines as if to lull the world awake, and the faint lap of waves against the shore set a steady pulse for the day ahead. These artisans, masters of their craft, gathered by the fjords, not in haste, but with a deliberate grace, their routines woven into the fabric of the land, drawing from the rich legacy of the Roskilde ship, finds those remarkably preserved vessels unearthed from the muddy depths of Denmark's Roskilde fjord. We glimpse the essence of their labor, though much remains veiled in the mists of time. Each morning, as the sun climbed above the rugged cliffs, the shipwrights would select their tools from weathered chests, the iron axes and adzes gleaming dully in the early light. The wood, sturdy oak felled from nearby forests, lay in neat stacks, its fresh scent mingling with the cool, damp air to create a soothing aroma that lingered like a distant memory. They worked in small groups, their tunics tied at the waist to allow for easy movement, the fabric soft against their skin from years of wear. One man might heft a plank, its grain as intricate as the fjord's inlets, and position it against the emerging frame of a longship. With a steady hand, he would trace the curves, guided by the subtle wisdom passed down through generations, much like the ships themselves, that the Roskilde discoveries reveal elegant hulls built for both speed and endurance across stormy seas. The first blows of the hammer came gently at first, a rhythmic tapping that echoed softly over the water, each strike precise and unhurried, as if the tool itself knew the song of the wood. As the morning deepened, the breeze grew playful, carrying the salty tang of the sea to mix with the earthy smell of freshly cut timber. The shipwrights paused now and then, not out of fatigue, but to listen to the wind's subtle murmurs, their faces calm beneath the shadow of their hoods. One might kneel to inspect a joint, running fingers over the smooth edges where the oak had been shaped, feeling the warmth of the sun-baked wood against his calloused palms. The sound of rasping files followed, a low, soothing scrape that blended with the distant cry of gulls, creating a symphony as comforting as a hearthside tale on a winter's eve. In these hours, the routines unfolded with a quiet poetry. Drawing again from the Roskilde evidence, we know the shipwrights favored clinker construction, layering planks overlapping like the scales of a fish, each one fastened with iron rivets hammered into place. The process was methodical, almost meditative. A man would heat the rivets in a small forge fire, the flames flickering with a warm glow that danced across the water's surface, and then position them with tongs that had been smoothed by countless hands before. As the hammer fell, the metallic ring resonated through the air, not sharp or jarring, but a gentle cadence that seemed to harmonize with the fjord's whispers, evoking the unassuming strength of vessels like the famous Skaldilev ships, which historians piece together from fragments to understand this very craft. The midday sun hung high, casting a golden haze over the scene, and the shipwrights would share a simple meal: barley bread and dried fish, perhaps eaten in companionable silence as they sat on logs by the shore. The taste of the sea lingered on their lips, a faint brininess that reminded them of the ship's destined voyages, though their focus remained on the present task. All the while, the breeze carried the scent of pine resin, used to seal the planks, its sticky warmth providing a tactile comfort as they applied it with brushes made from animal hair, the strokes slow and deliberate, like a lullaby's refrain. Afternoons brought deeper immersion in the work, where the shipwrights turned to finer details. They carved the strakes, those long planks that formed the ship's sides, with adzes that glided through the oak as if it were willing clay. The tool's handles, worn to a silky finish, fit perfectly into their grips, a testament to the Roskilde finds that show how such implements were crafted for endurance and precision. Sensory memories abound here. The cool splash of water from the fjord as they tested the hull's balance, the the faint vibration of the wood under their fingers as they tightened lashings with cords of twisted hide, and the soft thud of a mallet against a peg, each sound weaving into the day's tranquil tapestry. Yet, amid this rhythmic flow, a gentle mystery lingers, as elusive as the fog that rolls in from the sea. The schedules of these shipwrights, so vital to their world, remain unrecorded in the annals of history, known only through the silent testimony of the Roskilde relics. One wonders, in a tone as light as a feather on the wind, how they divided their days. Did the sun's arc dictate their pauses? Or did the tide's pull guide their hands to rest? Perhaps they worked until the light faded, their routines as fluid as the water they sailed, leaving modern eyes to ponder with a subtle smile the gaps in our knowledge, where imagination fills the voids like sap in the oak. As evening approached, the shipwrights' efforts slowed, their tunics damp with the day's honest sweat, cooled by the evening breeze that carried the first stars into view. They might step back to admire their progress, the emerging curve of the hull reflecting the fjord's serene surface, a mirror of their labors' quiet triumph. Drawing from historical examples like the Roskilde ship, with its intricate lapstrake design, we see how these routines built not just vessels, but legacies. Each plank a story untold. The final tasks involved smoothing the surfaces with stones from the shore, the gritty texture under their palms providing a satisfying close to the day, as the sounds of hammering gave way to the night's gentle hush. In these moments, the shipwrights embodied a harmony with their world, their work a soothing dance of creation. And as the fjord's waters lapped softly against the half-built ship, one could almost hear the whisper of what comes next, the tales of those who would sail these crafts into the unknown, carrying the echo of this tranquil labor across the waves. In the hushed forests of 10th century Scandinavia, where ancient oaks stood like silent guardians under a canopy of whispering leaves, the Viking shipwrights began their timeless ritual. Dressed in simple tunics of rough wool, woven from the fleeces of Highland sheep, these artisans moved with a deliberate grace, their hands calloused from years of coaxing life from the earth. The air carried a faint chill, the kind that settled gently on the skin like a morning dew, as the first rays of dawn filtered through the branches, painting the world in soft, golden hues. Here, far from the clamor of longhouses or the rhythms of ship assembly, the focus was solely on the sacred act of timber sourcing, a pursuit as vital as the breath of the sea itself. The shipwrights, sturdy men and women whose faces bore the quiet wisdom of their trade, selected their trees with an eye honed by generations of tradition. They favored the mighty oaks, their trunks broad and unyielding, rising from the forest floor like pillars of forgotten gods. These trees, some as old as the fjords that carved the land, promised the strength needed for the longboats that would brave distant shores. As they approached, the artisans paused, their breaths mingling with the crisp scent of pine and damp moss, a fragrance that lingered like a whispered secret in the air. One by one, they ran their fingers along the bark, feeling the ridges and grooves, assessing the wood's hidden qualities with a touch as light as a feather drifting on the wind. When the moment was right, the first axe fell, its iron blade gleaming dully in the filtered light. The thud echoed through the trees, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to pulse through the earth itself, not harsh, but rhythmic, like the steady beat of a distant drum. Each strike was measured, deliberate, the shipwrights swinging with a calm precision that belied the force behind it. The air filled with the woody aroma of freshly exposed hardwood, a rich, earthy scent that wove through the pines and ferns, evoking memories of ancient rituals performed under the same stars. Birds scattered overhead, their wings rustling softly against the leaves, while squirrels paused in their scurry, watching from afar as if sensing the gravity of the work. In these moments, the forest came alive with subtle sensations. The ground beneath the shipwright's feet was a tapestry of fallen leaves and soft moss, yielding gently with each step and releasing a faint, herbal perfume that mingled with the sweat of honest labor. The tunics they wore, dyed in muted earth tones from boiled roots and berries, brushed against the undergrowth, creating a soft whisper that harmonized with the breeze. One artisan, perhaps with a subtle glint of wit in his eye, might murmur to his companion about how the trees seemed to choose their fate, as if the oaks whispered among themselves in the night, deciding which would serve the ships and which would stand sentinel still. Historical accounts, drawn from the careful excavations of sites like those at Gokstad and Thun in Norway, reveal that these shipwrights drew upon a deep knowledge of their environment, passed down through oral traditions and practical experience. Archaeological reports from digs in the early 20th century, such as those by Swedish scholars examining pollen samples and tool remnants, indicate that preferred timbers were sourced from managed woodlands, where selective felling ensured regrowth for future generations. Yet, even these records leave gaps, for not all forests were mapped or remembered in the sagas. The mystery of unrecorded timber sources adds a layer of intrigue to this serene endeavor, a puzzle that lingers like mist in the valleys. Imagine, for instance, the hidden groves deep in the upland forests of what is now southern Sweden, where oaks grew in isolation, their locations known only to a few trusted souls. These areas, perhaps shielded by natural barriers of dense thickets and winding streams, were not chronicled in the Icelandic annals or rune stones that survive today. Why were they kept secret? One might ponder, with a gentle curiosity, if it was to preserve the best wood for critical voyages, or to guard against rivals who might pilfer the resources. The shipwrights, in their calm detachment, would speak of it sparingly, if at all, their words carrying a subtle wit, like a quiet joke shared over an evening fire. The trees reveal themselves only to those who listen. One might say, his voice as soothing as the rustle of leaves. As the axes continued their work, the felled trunks lay upon the forest floor, their fresh cuts exuding a resinous scent that evoked the warmth of sun-baked wood. The shipwrights paused to wipe their brows, the cool air brushing against their skin like a comforting hand, while distant calls of woodland creatures provided a natural symphony. In these pauses, they might share stories of past sourcing trips, tales of navigating fog-shrouded paths where the air grew heavy with the salty tang of nearby seas. Though they steered clear of the shipyards themselves, the process was methodical. After felling, they used simple levers and ropes, fashioned from twisted vines and animal hides, to maneuver the logs toward waiting paths. The effort was steady, not frantic, each movement a testament to the harmony between human and nature. Sensory details abound in these recollections. The weight of the axe in hand, cool and smooth from years of use, contrasted with the warmth of the sun filtering through the canopy, casting dappled shadows that danced like playful spirits. The taste of the forest air, tinged with the bitterness of wild herbs crushed underfoot, added a layer of earthy flavor to the experience. Even the sound of the logs rolling over the ground, a low, grinding rumble that faded into the distance, carried a calming cadence, reminding one of waves lapping against a distant shore. Archaeological evidence from Danish sites, such as the ledger reconstructions based on 1980s excavations, suggests that timber selection involved not just strength, but also the grain's straightness, essential for the curved planks of Viking vessels. Yet the sources remained enigmatic. Reports from Norwegian digs indicate that some woods were transported over long distances, perhaps from inland regions not typically associated with coastal communities. This mystery deepens when considering how shipwrights identified these remote stands through seasonal migrations, trade networks, or perhaps an intuitive bond with the land that evaded written record. It is an enigma wrapped in the very fibers of the wood, a subtle puzzle that invites reflection without demanding resolution. As the day waned, the shipwrights gathered their harvest, the logs now ready for the journey to the water's edge. The forest, ever resilient, began its quiet regeneration, new shoots pushing through the soil with a promise of renewal. In this calming rhythm, one could almost hear the faint echo of future adventures, the timber destined to become the backbone of ships that would cross vast oceans. And so, with the sun dipping low and casting a golden glow over the scene, the artisans stepped back, their work complete for now, leaving the mysteries of the forest to unfold in their own time. Yet, as the shadows lengthened, thoughts turned gently toward what lay ahead. The shaping of these timbers into vessels that would carry dreams across the waves, a transition as natural as the changing seasons. In the soft light of a 10th century Scandinavian dawn, where mist clung to the fjord's edge like a whispered secret, the shipwrights gathered in their simple tunics of wool and linen, their hands already calloused from seasons past. The air carried the faint, earthy scent of pine and oak, mingled with the gentle rhythm of waves lapping against the shore. These artisans, sturdy figures with steady gazes, bent over long planks of wood laid out on the grassy banks, their movements as deliberate as the tide's pull. No rush disturbed their work. Instead, a quiet harmony prevailed, each stroke of tool against timber echoing like a lullaby born from the heart of the north. Among their tools, the adze held pride of place, its curved blade a silent partner in shaping the vessel's fate. The shipwright would grasp the adze handle, worn smooth by generations, and draw it across the plank with a measured swing, the wood yielding under its edge in a soft, scraping whisper. Imagine the sound. A low, soothing scrape, like fingers brushing over ancient runes, each pass removing slivers of oak that fell away in delicate curls. The air filled with fine sawdust, drifting like snowflakes in the morning sun, settling on the workers' tunics and lending a powdery texture to the breeze. One might pause, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, and inhale the warm, resinous aroma that rose from the freshly hewn surface, a scent that spoke of forests deep and enduring. These men, with their tunics tied at the waist for ease of movement, worked in pairs, one holding the plank steady while the other wielded the adze. The technique was precise, honed through years of tradition, passed down like stories around a hearth. They began with the rough shaping, the adze blade biting into the wood at a shallow angle, carving out the plank's curve to fit the ship's clinker-built frame. As the blade moved, it created a rhythmic pattern, a series of gentle thuds and scrapes that blended into the distant calls of seabirds overhead. The wood itself seemed to sigh under the tool's touch, releasing a faint, woody perfume that mingled with the salt-tinged air, evoking memories of distant voyages yet to come. Not far off, another artisan turned to the auger, a slender tool with a spiraled bit that drilled neat holes for rivets and pegs. He positioned the auger carefully, his fingers tracing the plank's grain first, feeling for the wood's natural weaknesses and strengths. With a steady twist, the auger bored into the oak, producing a soft, whirring sound that hummed like a distant bee's wing. Sawdust spilled out in a fine cascade, warm to the touch, and carrying the subtle, nutty scent of freshly cut timber. The shipwright's face remained calm, his eyes half-lidded in concentration, as if the tool were an extension of his own breath, drawing forth the ship's skeleton with effortless grace. In those moments, one could almost sense the subtle wit in their craft, a quiet irony in how such formidable tools forged from iron gleaned from far-off trades could create something so elegant and fleeting. The adze, for instance, with its deceptively simple design, required a deft hand to avoid splintering the wood, a balance that often drew a faint smile from the more seasoned workers. Ah, this old friend, one might murmur to himself, ever eager to shape the world, yet so quick to remind us of our own imperfections. And as the sun climbed higher, casting a golden glow over the scene, the shipwrights paused briefly, their tools resting, to appreciate the play of light on the smoothed planks. Each surface, now a canvas of subtle textures and shadows, yet amid this serene rhythm, there lingered a mystery, one that whispered through the generations like a half-forgotten dream. The Oseberg ship, unearthed from its earthen tomb in later centuries, revealed tools and techniques that hinted at innovations lost to time. In the 10th century, shipwrights employed designs that seemed almost otherworldly. Their adzes and augurs, crafted with precision, that baffled even the most learned scholars of later eras. How had they achieved such fine edges on their blades, capable of shaving wood to a feather's delicacy without cracking the grain? The mystery lay in the subtle variations of these tools, perhaps tempered in secret forges or patterned after ancient runes etched in hidden groves. One could imagine a shipwright, his tunic dusted with sawdust that sparkled in the light, pausing to examine his adze blade, its curves suggesting knowledge passed down in whispers, never fully recorded. The sensory world of their work was rich and enveloping. From the cool, smooth feel of the plank under calloused palms to the warm embrace of the sun on their backs as the adze scraped, it left behind a surface like silk, inviting the touch of fingers to trace the curves, each one a testament to the artisan's quiet mastery. The air hummed with the collective sounds, the steady scrape of metal on wood, the occasional soft clink as tools were set aside, and the distant murmur of the fjord's waters. Even the sawdust, fine and golden, danced in the light, carrying with it the earthy taste of the forest, a reminder of the trees that had stood tall before meeting the shipwright's hand. Another technique involved the careful use of the broadaxe. Its flat blade swung in wide, arcing motions to hew the planks into shape. The shipwright would stand tall, his tunic swaying gently with the effort, and bring the axe down in a controlled sweep, the wood parting with a muffled thud that resonated like a heartbeat. This method demanded intuition, a feel for the wood's hidden fibers, and as the blade met its mark, a faint, woody fragrance bloomed, mingling with the salty breeze. The artisans moved with a lullaby, like grace, their movements synchronized as if to an unseen melody, each stroke building upon the last in a dance of creation. In the shadows of their workspace, where the light filtered through overhanging branches, one might catch a glimpse of the tool's enigmatic designs. The Oseberg finds, with their preserved artifacts, suggest that these shipwrights used adzes with uniquely angled blades, perhaps inspired by the curves of the coastline itself. Yet the exact methods of forging such tools remain shrouded in mystery, a puzzle that teases the mind like a riddle in the sagas. Why were these designs not carried forward? Perhaps they were guarded secrets, shared only among the brotherhood of craftsmen, or lost in the fires of raids that swept through the lands. One shipwright, wiping his brow with a sleeve heavy with dust, might ponder this as he worked, his thoughts drifting to the ghosts of tools past, their shadows lingering in the grain of the wood. As the day wore on, the sensory tapestry grew more vivid. The warmth of the sun on exposed skin, the cool kiss of the wind carrying hints of wildflowers from the nearby meadows, and the satisfying weight of a well-used tool in hand. The adze scrape became a soothing refrain, lulling the workers into a state of focused tranquility, where time seemed to bend like the planks they shaped. Even the occasional mishap, a tool slipping slightly, leaving a minor imperfection, was met with a detached calm, a gentle acknowledgement of the wood's own story, rather than a cause for frustration. Through it all, the mystery of those lost designs wove its way into the narrative, a subtle undercurrent that added depth to the scene. Based on the Oseberg discoveries, we know the shipwright's tools were remarkably advanced, with handles ergonomically shaped and blades hardened to withstand the rigors of northern seas. Yet these specifics faded from history, leaving only fragments for us to ponder. Perhaps, in the quiet hours, a shipwright would run his thumb over his adze edge, marveling at its sharpness, and wonder if it held echoes of a forgotten era, a wit of the ancients preserved in iron and wood. As evening approached, with the sky turning to hues of soft lavender and gold, the shipwrights laid down their tools, their tunics marked with the day's labors. The planks, now smoothed and ready, rested like promises of journeys to come, their surfaces gleaming faintly in the fading light. And so, with a gentle exhale, the scene faded, leaving behind a sense of wonder and the soft invitation to dream of what lies ahead in the next tale of the sea's enduring call. In the quiet hush of a 10th century Scandinavian evening, where fjords stretched like silver threads under a sky painted in pastel blues and golds, a group of Viking shipwrights gathered along the water's edge. These artisans, clad in simple woolen tunics dyed the color of aged oak, had spent their days shaping longships from sturdy oak beams, their hands calloused yet steady. Now, as the sun dipped low, they set aside their tools and turned to the simple rituals that wove their lives together, bonds as enduring as the vessels they built. The air carried a gentle saltiness from the fjord, mingling with the earthy scent of pine smoke rising from a low fire. Around it, the shipwrights arranged themselves on flat stones smoothed by centuries of waves, their tunics rumpled from the day's labor. One man, his beard streaked with silver like frost on a blade, poked at the flames with a driftwood stick, coaxing the heat to life. Another day the sea claims our sweat, he murmured with a wry smile, his voice a soft rumble that carried no edge, only the warmth of shared exhaustion. The others nodded, their laughter bubbling up like the gentle lapping of water against the shore, a sound as light as the flicker of fireflies in the dusk. Meals were modest affairs, yet they held a quiet magic, drawing the group closer in the fading light. Fresh caught fish sizzled on flat stones heated by the fire, their skins crackling and releasing an aroma of sea brine and char that wafted through the air like a whispered invitation. The fish, perhaps a cod or herring, pulled from the depths that morning, released oils that danced and popped, filling the space with a savory scent that made mouths water without haste. One woman, her tunic sleeves rolled to reveal forearms, etched with faint scars from hammer and adze, carefully turned the fillets with a wooden spatula, her movements deliberate and unhurried. "Remember the one that got away last summer," she said, her words laced with subtle humor, as if the fish itself were an old friend playing tricks. The group chuckled softly, the sound blending with the rhythmic whisper of waves, a melody that soothed the soul after hours bent over timber. These gatherings were more than mere sustenance. They were the threads of unseen tapestries, weaving friendships that saga accounts often glossed over in their tales of raids and voyages. In the Icelandic sagas, like those of Egil Skallagrimsson or the Greenlanders, brief mentions of craftsmen hinted at deeper connections, alliances forged not in battle, but in the quiet exchanges around a fire. Here by the fjord, the shipwrights shared stories passed down like heirlooms, tales of ancestors who had shaped keels under similar skies. A younger artisan, his tunic still bearing the fresh scent of newly woven wool, leaned in to listen, his eyes reflecting the fire's glow. "My grandfather spoke of a ship that sailed through storms, as if the gods themselves guided it," he said, his voice carrying a gentle wonder. The others responded with nods and soft affirmations, their bonds evident in the way they leaned toward one another, shoulders brushing in easy familiarity. The mystery of these unwritten friendships lay in their subtlety, like shadows playing on the water's surface, unseen yet profoundly felt. While sagas chronicled the exploits of jarls and warriors, they rarely captured the quiet loyalties among those who labored with wood and iron. Perhaps it was the shared rhythm of their work, the rhythmic swing of axes, the careful sanding of planks that fostered such ties, or the knowledge that a well-crafted ship could mean the difference between life and loss on distant seas. One evening, as the fire's embers glowed like distant stars, an older shipwright paused mid-bite, his fish flaking tenderly between his fingers. "We've seen ships launched that carried our hearts with them," he reflected, his tone detached, as if pondering a dream half forgotten. The group fell into a comfortable silence, the only sounds the soft crackle of the fire and the distant call of a seabird, evoking the enigma of connections that endured beyond words. Etched into the very grain of the wood they shaped, sensory details enriched these moments, turning ordinary evenings into tapestries of memory. The warmth of the fire kissed their faces, a gentle caress against the cool fjord breeze that carried hints of wild herbs and damp earth. They passed around a simple wooden bowl of berries, plump and tart, gathered from nearby hillsides, their juices bursting with a sweetness that lingered on the tongue like a secret shared. "Taste this," one said, offering a handful to his neighbor, his voice laced with the subtle wit of someone who knew the value of small pleasures. The berries, perhaps lingonberries from the saga's descriptions of northern feasts, added a burst of color to their meal. Red as the setting sun, laughter followed, soft and unforced, as they recounted mishaps from the yard, a misplaced tool that led to a humorous chase, or a beam that shifted just enough to startle but not harm. These stories, drawn from historical accounts, like those in the saga of Olaf Tryggvason, painted a picture of resilience wrapped in camaraderie, where every shared meal reinforced the invisible threads holding them together. As twilight deepened, the shipwright spoke of the fjord's whispers, the water's soft murmurs carrying echoes of ancient voyages. One man, his tunic frayed at the edges from years of wear, gazed out at the darkening expanse. The sea keeps its secrets, just as we keep ours, he said, his words carrying a lullaby like rhythm, inviting reflection without urgency. This alluded to the unwritten mystery, the friendships that shaped their world, but left no marks in stone or parchment, lost to time, yet alive in the air they breathed. In the sagas, such bonds were implied in the background, like the steady hands that built the ships for heroes. But here, by the fire, they took center stage. A woman added a sprig of thyme to the flames, its aromatic smoke rising in delicate spirals, filling the air with a herbaceous fragrance that soothed the senses and evoked the herbs mentioned in medieval texts for their calming properties. These evenings fostered a sense of unity that extended beyond the meal, a community bound by mutual respect and the shared burden of their craft. They spoke of the stars emerging overhead, their light twinkling like distant beacons, and how each ship they built carried a piece of their collective spirit. The subtle wit emerged in their banter, like when one teased another about a particularly stubborn plank, saying, "It fights harder than a troll in the tales," drawing nods and quiet smiles. Sensory elements wove through it all, the cool touch of the fjord's mist on their skin, the satisfying crunch of fresh bread baked over the fire, its crust golden and warm. These details, inspired by saga descriptions of everyday life in settlements like those in Norway's coastal regions, added layers to their bonds, making the ordinary extraordinary. Yet even in this calm, the mystery lingered, a gentle undercurrent. Why were such friendships so often overlooked in the chronicles? Perhaps because they were too intimate, too human, for the grand narratives of heroes and gods. As the fire dwindled to glowing embers, the shipwright sat in companionable silence, the soft laughter fading into the night like echoes across the water. One by one, they rose, their tunics brushing against the stones, and bid each other good night with a simple clasp of hands, a gesture as old as the sagas themselves. In this way, the community of shipwrights thrived, their bonds a testament to the enduring power of shared moments. As the last light faded, thoughts turned inevitably to the morrow, where new days would bring fresh opportunities for connection, bridging the gap to whatever lay beyond the fjord's embrace. Word count 1,500 in the hushed twilight of a 10th century Scandinavian fjord, where the sea whispered against wooden hulls, and the air carried the faint salt of distant waves. Viking shipwrights gathered in the shadow of their workshops. These artisans, clad in simple tunics woven from coarse wool, moved with a quiet reverence that belied the strength in their calloused hands. Their world was one of rhythm and ritual, where the crafting of longships intertwined with ancient devotions to Thor, the god of thunder and craftsmanship. Soft breezes rustled through the pines, carrying the scent of pine resin and earth as they approached simple altars built from smoothed stones and driftwood, places where the divine and the daily met in gentle harmony. The shipwrights, their faces etched with lines of wind and labor, began their offerings as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in strokes of amber and rose. Thor, they believed, watched over their hammers and adzes, ensuring that each plank and rib of the longships held firm against the capricious sea. In the sagas of old, like those whispered from the pages of the poetic Edda, Thor was depicted as a protector of artisans, his mighty hammer Mjolnir symbolizing the forge and the forge's kin. So, with deliberate grace, the men knelt before the altars, their tunics brushing against the cool moss that clung to the stones. They placed small tokens of their trade shards of oak, hammered nails, and sprigs of sacred herbs upon the rough surfaces, murmuring invocations that echoed the ancient verses. A wisp of incense rose from a clay bowl, its smoke curling lazily into the evening air like a sigh from the gods themselves. The fragrance was earthy and warm, a blend of juniper berries and dried thyme, gathered from the forested hillsides where the shipwrights roamed in search of the perfect timber. As the smoke drifted, it carried with it the soft chants of the artisans, their voices blending in a lullaby-like cadence that seemed to soothe the very wind. Thor of the storm, guardian of the keel, they chanted, their words flowing like a gentle stream over stones. Lend your strength to our hands and your wisdom to our craft. The sound was not loud or forceful, but a subtle murmur that wove through the air, inviting a sense of peace amid the day's toil. In these moments, the shipwrights felt a profound connection to their heritage, drawing from the accounts in sagas such as Heimskringla, where tales of skilled builders under divine favor were recounted. With quiet admiration, they poured libations of mead into the earth at the altar's base, the golden liquid seeping slowly into the soil like a promise returned to the gods. The mead's sweet, fermented aroma mingled with the incense, creating a sensory tapestry that enveloped the gathering. One could almost taste the honeyed notes on the tongue, feel the cool dampness of the ground beneath bare knees, and hear the distant call of seabirds fading into night. Yet woven into these practices was a mystery that lingered like an unspoken secret, a veil over the rituals not captured in the written sagas. For not all devotions were etched into parchment or stone. Some were passed in hushed tones from master to apprentice. Rituals born of oral tradition that faded with the breath of those who knew them. The shipwrights spoke of unwritten rites, perhaps involving the carving of hidden runes into the ship's frame under the cover of dusk. Symbols meant to invoke Thor's protection without drawing the envy of other gods. These mysteries added a layer of intrigue to their gatherings, a subtle wit in the way the artisans exchanged knowing glances, as if sharing a private jest with the divine. One might imagine the faint scratch of a blade on wood, the soft glow of a single candle flickering in the dim light, hinting at rites that eluded the chronicler's quills. As the rituals unfolded, the shipwrights moved with a calming rhythm, their movements deliberate and fluid, like the waves that shaped their vessels. They anointed tools with oil pressed from flax seeds, the liquid's slick warmth sliding over iron and wood, a tactile reminder of Thor's blessings. The oil carried a nutty scent that lingered on their fingers, mingling with the salt of their skin and the resin's sticky embrace. In the sagas, such preparations were noted as essential, ensuring that the craftsman's work was not merely mortal, but infused with godly essence. A gentle humor often crept into their recitations, as when an elder might quip about Thor's own hammer striking true only if the adze was properly blessed. His words delivered with a soft chuckle that eased the gravity of the moment. The altars themselves were modest affairs, assembled from materials at hand, perhaps a flat stone from the riverbed, adorned with carvings of hammers and waves, evoking the gods' dual domain over sky and sea. Around them, the shipwrights formed a loose circle, their tunics swaying lightly in the breeze, the fabrics weave catching the last rays of sunlight like threads of gold. They chanted verses adapted from the Elder Edda, lines that spoke of Thor's journeys and triumphs, but softened here into a lullaby for weary souls. The words flowed without haste, each syllable a gentle wave lapping at the shore. From the forge of the world, we draw our might under Thor's gaze. Our ships take flight. Sensory details abounded in these gatherings, from the cool touch of evening dew on their feet to the rhythmic crackle of a small fire kindled nearby, its flames dancing like distant lightning. The fire's warmth radiated outward, a comforting presence that chased away the fjord's chill, while sparks rose briefly into the air, mirroring the stars emerging overhead. In historical accounts, such as those in the Icelandic sagas, fire was a sacred element, symbolizing Thor's thunderbolts, and the shipwrights treated it with reverent care, feeding it with dry twigs that popped softly in the quiet. As the rituals progressed, the mystery of the unwritten deepened, a subtle enigma that added a dreamlike quality to the proceedings. Whispers suggested that certain gestures, like tracing invisible patterns in the air with a hammer, were part of rites never recorded, lest they lose their potency. This secrecy lent a whimsical edge to the practices, a gentle wit in the way the artisans guarded their knowledge, as if Thor himself might disapprove of its revelation. One could sense it in the air, a faint tension like the hush before a storm, yet wrapped in the calming embrace of their chants. Through the night, the shipwrights continued, their devotions a blend of practicality and piety. Drawn from the rich tapestry of saga lore, they might pause to share a simple meal of barley bread and smoked fish, the flavors earthy and satisfying. A moment of communion that reinforced their bond with the divine. Without delving into broader community ties, the bread's crust crunched softly between teeth, its warmth contrasting with the cooling air, while the fish's smoky essence evoked the hearths of ancestral halls described in ancient texts. In the end, as the stars wheeled overhead and the first hints of dawn crept across the fjord, the shipwrights concluded their rites with a final offering, a lock of hair or a chip of wood placed upon the altar as a token of gratitude. The mystery of those unwritten rituals remained, a lingering question mark in the annals of history, inviting reflection on what was lost to time. Yet, in this gentle recounting, one feels the echo of their world, a soothing reminder of human ingenuity entwined with the divine. And so, as the first light touched the waves, the shipwrights dispersed, their spirits lifted, ready for the labors ahead, with thoughts perhaps turning to the broader tapestry of Viking life that awaited exploration. In the soft hush of a 10th century Scandinavian evening, where the fjords whispered secrets to the stars, Viking shipwrights gathered in their modest camps along the rugged coast. These artisans, clad in simple woolen tunics dyed with earthy hues of ochre and moss, moved with the quiet rhythm of men who had spent their days shaping wood under the vast sky. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sea in gentle strokes of amber and indigo, they turned from their labors to the gentle arts of healing, drawing upon the wild bounty of their lands to mend both body and spirit. Here, amidst the flicker of low fires and the distant call of seabirds, health was not a battle, but a balm, a tender ritual woven into the fabric of their lives. The air carried a soothing blend of scents, the steam from herbal infusions rising like faint dreams to caress the skin. Imagine the shipwrights, their hands calloused yet careful, cradling clay pots filled with water infused with crushed meadowsweet and elderflower, gathered from the nearby meadows where dew still clung to the blades of grass. This was no hurried remedy, but a deliberate pause, a moment to inhale the fresh, earthy aroma that mingled with the salty tang of the sea breeze. One might sit on a weathered log, eyes half closed, as the warm vapor enveloped them, easing the ache in their shoulders from hours bent over timber. The herbs, dried and stored in leather pouches tied with twine, spoke of a deeper knowledge, passed down through generations like a lullaby murmured in the dark. In those camps, tucked between the sheltering pines and the lapping waves, the shipwrights employed remedies born of observation and necessity. Archaeological digs at sites like Burka and Hedeby have uncovered remnants of such practices, charred seeds, and pollen grains preserved in the soil, hinting at the plants they favored. Take, for instance, the humble nettle. Its leaves boiled into a tea that soothed inflamed joints. Its subtle sting in the brew, a witty reminder that even discomfort could bring relief. A shipwright might sip this infusion slowly, feeling the warmth spread through his veins like a gentle tide. The faint bitterness, tempered by a dash of honey from nearby hives. The sea air, cool and invigorating, played its part too, as they breathed deeply, the rhythmic inhale and exhale mirroring the ocean's own breath, washing away the day's fatigue. Yet, not all ailments yielded easily. In the dim light of their tents, fashioned from hides that smelled of smoke and salt, they applied poultices of yarrow and comfrey to minor wounds. The herbs ground into a paste with a wooden mortar, its rhythmic thumping a soft counterpoint to the wind's murmur. Yarrow, with its feathery leaves and faint floral scent, was prized for staunching blood and easing pain, its efficacy noted in the faint residues found on ancient grinding stones. One could almost hear the subtle wit in their exchanges, a shipwright joking that the plant's resilience mirrored their own, growing stubbornly amid the rocks, just as they persisted through the seasons. The steam from these preparations rose in lazy tendrils, carrying with it the essence of the forest pine and birch, wild and pure, creating a cocoon of calm that enveloped the camp. As twilight deepened, the mystery of lost remedy recipes began to weave through their gatherings. A shadow of intrigue, softened by the fire's glow, whispers spoke of ancient formulas, perhaps inscribed on fragile bark scrolls, or passed in oral tales, now faded like mist at dawn. Archaeological evidence from sites such as the Oseberg ship burial suggests that such knowledge existed, with bundles of herbs and medicinal tools interred alongside the dead. Yet many recipes have vanished, their secrets buried with those who knew them. One might ponder, in a voice as gentle as the waves lapping the shore, how a particular blend of sage and thyme, once used to ward off fevers, slipped from memory, leaving only echoes in the wind. This loss added a layer of quiet enchantment to their evenings, a subtle puzzle that invited reflection rather than regret. For what was forgotten might yet resurface in the turn of a leaf, or the scent of rain-soaked earth. The shipwrights, with their tunics drawn close against the cooling air, often shared these stories in hushed tones, their words flowing like a lullaby. Sensory details abounded in their tales, the crisp snap of fresh mint leaves between fingers, releasing an invigorating aroma that cleared the mind. The smooth warmth of a stone heated by the fire, placed against tired muscles to draw out tension. The faint, melodic rustle of dried herbs hanging from tent poles, swaying gently in the breeze. Each remedy was a tapestry of the senses, drawing from the natural world that surrounded them. For instance, excavations at Ribe have revealed caches of chamomile flowers. They're daisy, like blooms used in teas to promote restful sleep. The flowers sweet, apple-like fragrance lingering in the air long after the brew was consumed. In moments of greater need, they turned to more profound practices, always with a detached grace that acknowledged hardship without dwelling on its edge. A shipwright might recall, in a tone as even as the horizon, how a compress of burdock root and plantain leaves had once eased an infection. The herb's earthy bitterness, a testament to nature's quiet strength. Such remedies, inferred from pollen analysis in Viking settlements, were applied with care. The process, a ritual of patience and trust. The sea air, ever present, carried a salty freshness that seemed to aid healing. Its invisible touch a companion to the herb's work. Subtle wit surfaced in their observations, like noting how the resilient dock plant, often found growing near their camps, mirrored the shipwright's own endurance, thriving in the shadow of greater trees, just as they toiled in the wake of mighty voyages. As the night deepened, the camp grew still, the fire's embers glowing like distant stars. Here, in this serene interlude, the mystery of those lost recipes took on a dreamlike quality, a gentle enigma that tied the past to the present. Perhaps one might muse, a recipe for a tonic of fennel and coriander, known to settle the stomach and lift the spirits, had been carried away on the winds of time, its exact proportions known only to the ancients. Yet in the sharing of what remained, there was a comforting continuity, a reminder that knowledge, like the sea, ebbs and flows, but never truly vanishes. Through the lens of archaeological finds, such as the herbal remnants at Elant's Ox Meadows, we glimpse the sophistication of these practices. Far removed from mere superstition, the shipwright's use of rosemary for its clarifying scent, or lavender to soothe the mind, added layers of sensory richness to their routines. Each herb a note in a harmonious symphony. One could almost feel the soft brush of lavender against the skin, its calming fragrance weaving through the air, inviting peace in the quiet hours. As the stars wheeled overhead, the camp settled into repose, the gentle rhythm of the waves, a natural lullaby. In this world of subtle wonders, health was a shared legacy, a whisper from the earth that endured. And so, as the night fades into the promise of dawn, we turn our thoughts to what lies beyond, where new tales await in the unfolding story of these ancient shores. In the soft light of a 10th century Scandinavian dawn, where the fjords stretched like ribbons of silver between ancient hills, young apprentices gathered by the water's edge, dressed in simple tunics of wool, woven with threads of earth and sky. They stood with the quiet determination of saplings reaching for the sun. The air carried a gentle saltiness from the sea, mingling with the fresh scent of pine and oak that lined the shore. As master shipwrights began another day of teaching the ancient craft of building vessels, these youths, barely more than boys and girls from nearby villages, learned not through scrolls or diagrams, for such things were rare in those times, but through the patient rhythm of hands and hearts. The training unfolded like a whisper on the wind, a process as fluid as the fjords themselves. Each apprentice started with the basics, feeling the weight of timber in their palms, running fingers over the grain to sense its secrets. A master might guide one lad, his voice low and steady, to select a plank from the pile stacked near the water. Feel how the wood bends to the will of the sea, he might say with a hint of wry amusement, as if the trees themselves held stories of voyages yet to come. The apprentices worked in the open air, where the sun warmed their backs, and the breeze carried the distant cry of gulls, turning each lesson into a dance with nature. As the days lengthened into weeks, the sensory world of the fjord became their classroom. The rhythmic hammering echoed softly across the water, a lullaby of metal on wood that pulsed like a heartbeat, each strike precise, yet unhurried. One could almost taste the salt on their lips as they paused to watch the waves lap against the hulls in progress, the air alive with the earthy aroma of freshly cut timber mixed with the faint, tangy brine. The apprentices learned to listen to the wood's subtle complaints, the creak of a beam under pressure, whispering warnings of weakness or strength. In those moments, with sawdust settling like fine mist on their tunics, they discovered the art of balance, shaping curves that would one day slice through stormy seas. Historical echoes from the Roskilde finds offer glimpses into this world, though they leave much to the imagination. Those excavated ships, preserved in the mud of Denmark's harbor, reveal the mastery of clinker construction, where overlapping planks formed a flexible skin for the vessels. Yet the training that produced such feats remains a gentle mystery, passed down through generations without the anchor of written records. Perhaps the masters drew from oral traditions, sharing tales around evening fires of ancestors who first bent wood to water. One might picture an apprentice, eyes wide under the fading light, absorbing not just techniques, but the spirit of the craft, where intuition guided the hand more than any tool. In the shade of tall pines, the apprentices practiced joining timbers, their movements deliberate and calm. A girl with braids tied back might kneel by a half-formed frame, her tunic dusted with fine shavings that caught the sunlight like stars. The master beside her would demonstrate the feel of a joint, his words flowing like a stream. Let the wood speak to you, child, as the fjord speaks to the shore. The air hummed with the soft scrape of tools against grain, a sound that blended seamlessly with the rustle of leaves and the distant splash of fish leaping in the water. Subtle scents of resin and seawater wove through the scene, creating a tapestry of sensations that made the lessons memorable, etched into memory like runes on stone. Wit crept in quietly, as it often did in those teachings, through the master's understated observations. An older shipwright might chuckle softly at a boy's clumsy attempt to align a plank, saying, Ah, that one's as straight as a fjord in a storm. His tone light and teasing, yet encouraging. Such moments lighten the labor, reminding the apprentices that even the mightiest longship began as a humble log. They learned the importance of patience, waiting for the wood to dry just so, or for the tide to reveal hidden stones that might inspire a hull's design. All the while, the salty breezes played across their skin, carrying whispers of the vast oceans beyond, stirring dreams of exploration in young minds. As seasons turned, the training delved deeper into the skills that defined a shipwright. Apprentices studied the way water interacted with wood, observing how a prototype might bob in the shallow fjord waters, its gentle rocking a lesson in buoyancy. The Roskilde discoveries hint at this knowledge, with their evidence of reinforced keels and strategic reinforcements. But the exact methods of imparting such wisdom remain veiled. Was it through endless repetition, or perhaps through storytelling that wove practical advice into epic tales of heroes like Ragnar or Bjorn? One can imagine the apprentices gathered at dusk, the air cooling with a crisp edge, listening as a master described the perfect curve of a prow, his voice a soothing cadence that lulled them into understanding. Sensory details enriched every step. The warmth of the sun baked planks under their hands contrasted with the cool spray from the fjord, a tactile reminder of the elements they sought to conquer. The faint, rhythmic lapping of waves provided a natural metronome for their work, while the occasional call of a loon added a melodic undercurrent to the hammering. In these settings, the apprentices honed their ability to envision the whole from the parts, picturing how a single plank might contribute to a ship's grace on the water. Subtle humor emerged in the shared mishaps, like when a wayward chip of wood flew into the air, landing in someone's hair, prompting a quiet laugh that echoed softly across the shore. Yet, amid this serene learning, the mystery lingered like fog on the water. The unrecorded nature of Viking shipwright training invites wonder. For what secrets were lost to time? Perhaps the masters employed rituals or mnemonics, passed in hushed tones that aligned the craft with the rhythms of nature and the gods. The Roskilde ships, with their intricate designs, suggest a depth of knowledge that went beyond mere skill, hinting at traditions that blended practicality with something almost mystical. Apprentices might have felt this enigma in the quiet moments when the wind carried unfamiliar scents and the stars reflected in the fjord, reminding them that their craft was part of a larger, unspoken legacy. Through it all, the training fostered not just technical prowess, but a profound respect for the materials and the world around them. An apprentice might spend hours sanding a beam, the repetitive motion accompanied by the soothing whisper of grit on wood, the air filled with the clean scent of progress. The masters, with their weathered faces and knowing eyes, imparted lessons that extended to life itself, teaching resilience through the fjords enduring presence. As the days blended into a harmonious flow, the young shipwrights grew, their tunics marked with the story of their learning, each stain and tear a badge of experience. In the end, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden glow on the water, the apprentices reflected on their journey. The gentle rocking of a nearly completed hull in the shallows promised future adventures, while the salty breeze carried away the day's labors. This training, rooted in the timeless ways of 10th century Scandinavia, prepared them for the seas ahead, even as the mysteries of their craft remained a soft enigma, waiting to be unraveled by time. And so, with the stars beginning to twinkle above the fjords, their thoughts turned toward what lay beyond, where the next segment of their story would unfold on the open waves. In the soft hush of a Scandinavian evening, where the fjords whispered secrets to the stars, a group of Viking shipwrights gathered around a flickering fire. The year was the 10th century, a time when the world seemed vast and uncharted, and these artisans, clad in simple tunics of wool and linen, bent over their work with the quiet intensity of dreamers shaping the sea's embrace. The air carried a gentle smokiness, the kind that lingered like a forgotten memory, mingling with the faint salt tang from the nearby waters. Charcoal sticks scratched against weathered planks, each stroke a deliberate whisper against the wood, as if the lines they drew were threads weaving the very fabric of voyages yet to come. These men, their faces etched with the lines of seasons past, worked in the dim glow that painted their tunics in shades of amber and shadow. No rush disturbed their rhythm. Instead, a calm rhythm unfolded, like the steady pulse of the ocean's tide. One shipwright, his hands calloused from years of handling adzes and axes, paused to study the curve he had just sketched. It mirrored the graceful arc of the Gokstad ship's hull, that legendary vessel unearthed from the earth in later ages, revealing the mastery of their forebears. The Gokstad, with its clinker-built sides overlapping like armored scales, spoke of a design philosophy born from necessity and intuition, light enough to navigate shallow rivers, sturdy enough to brave the North Atlantic's tempests. Yet here, in this moment, the shipwrights drew not from memory alone, but from an unspoken understanding passed down through generations, a knowledge as ancient as the runes carved into standing stones. The fire crackled softly, its flames dancing with a wit all their own, as if chuckling at the folly of men who dared to command the waves. Embers glowed like tiny suns, casting a warm light that softened the edges of the world. The shipwrights' tunics, frayed at the hems from days spent amid sawdust and tar, rustled faintly with each movement, a subtle symphony accompanying the scratch of charcoal. One artisan dipped his tool into a shallow bowl of ground charcoal mixed with water, the mixture as black as a raven's wing, and resumed his sketch. He traced the lines of the keel, envisioning how it would slice through water, the hull's contours designed to glide rather than fight the currents. These designs drew inspiration from the Gokstad's elegant form, where overlapping planks were fastened with iron rivets, allowing the ship to flex with the sea's moods without splintering apart. As the night deepened, the air grew cooler, carrying the distant cry of a lone owl and the earthy scent of damp soil from the nearby forests. The shipwrights spoke little, their words sparse and measured, like the careful placement of each line on their drawings. One might murmur, "See how the bow rises, like a breath drawn before the storm." His voice, a soothing lull, laced with a subtle humor that hinted at the sea's capricious nature. They knew from tales of the Gokstad and other relics that a ship's design was more than mere craftsmanship. It was a dialogue with the elements. The hull's shallow draft, inspired by such finds, allowed for swift beaching on foreign shores, a clever adaptation that turned vulnerability into advantage. Yet in their sketches, they explored variations, perhaps widening the beam for greater stability, or refining the strakes to better handle the weight of cargo ideas born from observation and the quiet wisdom of experience. The mystery of lost design plans wove through their work like a faint mist over the fjords. Legends whispered of ancient scrolls and marked tablets, detailing the precise measurements and innovations of earlier shipwrights that had vanished into the annals of time. Some said they were hidden in the roots of old oaks, guarded by spirits of the land, while others pondered if they had been carried away on doomed voyages, sinking to the ocean's depths with their secrets intact. This enigma added a layer of gentle intrigue to the night, a puzzle that teased the mind without demanding resolution. The shipwrights, in their detached way, might share a knowing glance, their expressions calm as they considered how such losses spurred new creations. After all, the Gokstad ship itself had been preserved in a burial mound, its design a testament to what endured, even as other plans faded like smoke into the sky. Sensory details enveloped their craft. The cool, smooth feel of the charcoal stick between fingers, its tip leaving a trail of fine dust that caught the firelight, the occasional pop of resin in the flames, releasing a resinous aroma that mingled with the salty breeze, the faint warmth radiating from the embers, wrapping around them like an invisible cloak. One shipwright leaned closer to his drawing, his breath steady, and even as he shaded in the curves of the prow, imagining how it would part the waves with minimal resistance. Much like the Gokstad's streamlined form, historical echoes surfaced in their minds, the way early designs evolved from simple dugouts to these sophisticated longships. Each iteration a quiet triumph over the sea's challenges. They drew upon such examples, picturing how the Gokstad's oak timbers, hewn from ancient forests, provided the perfect balance of strength and flexibility, a detail that informed their own sketches without replicating the vessel outright. As the fire's glow began to wane, the shipwright's movements slowed, each stroke of charcoal growing more deliberate, more meditative. The night air, now laced with a hint of dew, carried the soft rustle of leaves and the distant lapping of water against the shore. In this calming rhythm, they contemplated the artistry of their trade, where every line represented not just wood and sail, but the dreams of exploration and the bonds of community. Subtle wit surfaced in their thoughts, as one might jest inwardly about how the sea, for all its might, could be outwitted by a well-drawn hull. Yet the mystery lingered, a soothing enigma that reminded them that not all knowledge needed to be grasped. Some was meant to inspire from the shadows. They recalled, in passing, how the Gokstad's discovery centuries later revealed the precision of their ancestors' work, the way the ship's frames were carefully spaced to distribute stress, a technique that might have been documented in those lost plans. Perhaps those designs held secrets to even lighter materials or innovative jointing methods, lost to time, but echoed in the very sketches before them. The air grew heavier with the scent of burning pine, its resinous smoke curling lazily upward, while the charcoal scratch provided a steady, lullaby-like cadence, each sound a note in a larger symphony of creation. In the